Hey guys, we're the Call Guys. I'm David.
And I'm George.
We are joined this week by our friend Nick Kremydas. Nick is the president of the South Carolina Realtors Association. Really, Nick has been the face so long for the Realtors Association here in our great state. He does a great job of leading this group of professional real estate persons from across the state. He's an incredible advocate for home ownership. So, Nick, thank you for joining us this afternoon. We're glad to have you with us to talk about what it means to be a realtor today.
This episode is brought to you by Dick Dyer, Mercedes-Benz, the first Mercedes-Benz in South Carolina.
Thank you for inviting me. It's a pleasure and an honor to be here.
Awesome. So to start it off, our first question is really going to be for people who are looking to buy a home or to sell a home, and they're looking for a real estate agent, and they've heard the term realtor used, but they don't know what the difference is. Could you tell them what's the difference between a realtor and a real estate agent, and what the realtor goes through when they join the CCRA, and a little bit about that continuing education as well?
Sure. My name is Nick Kremydas. I'm the Chief Executive Officer of the South Carolina Realtors, and I've been serving our Realtor members since 1994, almost 30 years, and it's been a journey of defending private property rights, promoting homeownership, and ensuring that South Carolinians have the ability to invest in real estate as well. And there's a lot of misconceptions over the term realtor and what it takes to be a realtor. So let's look at the total. Let's look at some numbers. This might help. There are approximately 47,000 active licensees in South Carolina. Now, to get your real estate license, you take a test, you pass an exam, and you go to the South Carolina Real Estate Commission and get your real estate license. After you get your real estate license, you can then choose to become a Realtor member, and by joining one of the 15 local associations that are in most of the major metros around South Carolina. Our Realtor members who invest in their professionalism through education, training, other professional development, make up and conduct more than 85% of all the transactions in the state. There are 29,000 realtors, 47,000 licensees. Our members do about 85% of all the business. And our members are held accountable to the Realtor Code of Ethics. If a realtor violates one of the 17 articles of our Code of Ethics, it's their contract basically with the consumer. Here's the promises I make to you as a realtor member during this transaction, and it's the only real estate profession that has a Code of Ethics where members can be disciplined, fined, even lose their membership for repeated violations of the Code of Ethics, which is separate from violations with the Real Estate Commission. So we like to say that if you're in the profession, if you're in the business of real estate, you are a realtor member. And our members are those trusted advisors, counselors. They're your local experts. And, you look on the national news and you see a weather forecast for the entire country. Well, we all know that real estate is a lot like the weather. It's very local, right? And in some cases, it's hyper local. And nobody is going to know your market better, what's happening in your community and your neighborhood, than your local trusted expert realtor.
So, you mentioned there's a code of ethics. How talk a little bit about just what are some of the key points of this ethics in this code of ethics that keeps real estate agents, honest, consumer oriented, so that our industry maintains a very positive, very robust what's the word I'm searching for now that I'm looking for?
Yeah, they're trusted, right? That the agent they're
Yes.
working with, they can trust. I'll cover just a couple, but our South Carolina real estate license law covers the bare minimum, right? It's the floor of what you need to do to be to have a real estate license. But the Realtor Code of Ethics imposes a much higher standard, a much stricter standard on that professional behavior of that realtor member. Um, some basic things that are not covered in state law. If you've got an agreement with a client, that agreement's got to be in writing. It's got to be presented at a reasonable time and in a timely manner to the client. If you're dealing with advertising, your advertising has to be truthful. It can't be misleading. You can't have what's called the blanket solicitations of other agents' listings. It's a comprehensive list, but the main one is that the client is promised that their realtor is going to be truthful, that they're going to know what they know as far as material conditions regarding the property, and that their advocacy is going to be based on the client that they're representing. And so the Code of Ethics is an accountability stick, and it's a measure that we make sure that our members are held to a higher standard across the state.
So now that we kind of get that background of what is a realtor, what is the association doing for homeowners? I know you had talked earlier about defending property rights and stuff like that. What does the association do to help these homeowners, not just from providing them with somebody who's going to be truthful in a transaction?
So as an association, we provide our members a number of member services. We provide advocacy, legal and legislative. We provide professional development, enforcement of the Code of Ethics, as I mentioned. Our advocacy is lobbying, is influencing local and state government. Our national association lobbies Congress in Washington, but we work on those on issues. I would say 85% of all the issues we deal with directly affect consumers instead of our own members. Things like tax issues, eminent domain. There's a legislation that's been pending for the last couple of years that would allow oil companies, in essence, to run oil pipelines through South Carolina and use the power of eminent domain to do so. Only only governmental entities have that authority under state law. And private companies, our position, we argue, they shouldn't be able to take somebody's land unless it's in an arm's length transaction where they agree to sell and on the purchase price or not. So we've been strongly advocating for property rights on that front and winning. We have advocated for tax reform issues that have impacted homeowners across the state. South Carolina is one of a handful of states that does not have a real estate transfer tax. And I hate to even say that out loud because I know there are probably some legislators listening to this podcast and I don't want to give them any ideas. But there are states that have a quarter or 1% or more that are tacked on to every real estate transaction. The clerks of court wanted to increase all the filing fees, making it more expensive, increasing the cost of the closing of a real estate transaction and for completely unnecessary reasons. And we are the eyes and ears on the ground. We're the only organization that are the eyes and ears of homeowners at the State House. And I'm proud of the work that we've done over the years, advocating, as I said, for all types of property rights and eminent domain and tax issues over the years that directly impact the consumers, the clients that we serve across the state.
So I know one of the homeowners' rights or issues y'all have gotten into revolve around short-term rentals of properties. George and I work with clients, and know other folks that have these short-term rentals. They rent them out through, the major platforms to allow their homes to be used, particularly down in vacation areas around the coast or up here around Lake Murray. Talk to us a little bit about, your advocacy for homeowners and those legal challenges that have come up.
Right. Short-term rentals are a very topical, very timely issue, David. There are municipalities across the state that have either banned these rentals for a class of property owners altogether, or severely restricting the number of short-term rentals in communities. And there's a huge private property rights, a constitutional takings issue in most of these cases. In the town of Seneca, for example, I'll just throw this out there. This has been litigated as well, but the town of Seneca passed an ordinance a few years ago that allowed 4% owners. If you're an owner occupied, if you live in your home, you can short-term rent your property. But if you bought a second home in Seneca and it happens to be on Lake Kiowee or anywhere in the town of Seneca, if it's taxed at 6%, the second home commercial rate,
yes, sir,
you can't short-term rent your property at all. And there's some procedure, some due process problems there. I believe it's a constitutional taking. We've got the Folly Beach that has limited the number of short-term rental licenses. They're trying to cap it. There are currently about 1,200 properties being rented. They want to reduce that number to 800. Overnight, you've got 400 homeowners that are going to be calling their lawyer, I'm sure, when they lose that revenue stream. It's very difficult for a local government to take away a right that when you've purchased property and you've anticipated a use of that property that was legal at the time you purchased it, and then government says, no, you can't do that with your property anymore. That usually will require some compensation to make up for that loss, if they can even do it to begin with. And so these are issues that we're challenging legally across the state, and also have some broad support in the legislature to address this. Now, keep in mind, as an association, we're not saying you can do whatever you want with your property. We're supportive of local regulations, licensing, accommodations, taxes, and so forth. What we're saying, though, is you can't take away someone's right that they had when they bought the property. And when you pull the rug out from under a homeowner in those situations, in my opinion, they deserve compensation, and we're going to fight to make sure they get it.
This episode of The Cole Guys is sponsored by Bell Carrington, Price & Gregg. Bell Carrington is our choice for the best real estate attorneys in town. They are highly communicative and make sure that the closing process is as smooth as possible. With offices in North Carolina, South Carolina, Tennessee, Georgia, and Alabama, they can handle any of your real estate finance, eminent domain, financial services litigation, and litigation needs. Call their Columbia SC office today at 803-509-5078.